Good morning and welcome to my channel. I'm Neil. In this video, we're going to talk about how to get started in AWS if you've got no experience. You've probably heard of DevOps, you've probably heard of AWS, but maybe you don't know where to start. This video is for you. Also on my channel, you'll see lots of other videos related to DevOps, the roles, the tools and things like that. Check it out. So, let's answer the question. How do you get started in AWS if you've got little or no experience? I don't know which direction you're coming at this question from. Assuming you've got little or no experience, I'm going to assume that you know what a computer is, and you've probably heard of development. The DevOps is where the developers meet the operations. Operations is closely associated with Cloud Ops and DevOps. Operations is where we run the software that the developers have written in the cloud. With that assumption out of the way, I'm going to point this question at operations. The first step in operations is understanding what a server is. In order to run, build and operate servers, you probably need to understand Linux. Understanding Linux is reasonably simple when you start with the commands. Stuff like mv, cp, how to SSH onto an instance, how to copy commands with the mv and cp commands, and general maintenance around files. Everything in Linux is file-based. You're either moving, creating or editing a file in order to get it to do what you want it to do. Want to update a network IP address? You're editing a text file. The knowledge of being able to edit a text file, like VI, or being able to copy it on your machine locally, and then uploading it to the server through SSH or SFTP. Okay, so we know how to get servers up and running, copy files to them, or edit files on the server. What's next? Amazon provide a free tier. This gives you limited access to all of their resources for 12 months for free. Essentially what it means is you can order stuff like a small EC2 instance and you don't get charged for it for 12 months. Be careful, they will charge you after 12 months. You'll also need to put a credit card in at some point so that they can charge you. The free tier doesn't include everything. Whilst it includes everything to a point, if you want a large EC2 instance, you'll have to pay for that. If you want 2 small EC2 instances, you get one for free, you'll have to pay for the other one. You might even get a load balancer. Check out the AWS free tier page for more information about what's included and what's not included. Speaking of the AWS services, you need to understand that there's a lot of them. Check out my video above here for the what service should I use for my startup. It'll tell you more about the services that are available. AWS do free trainings on understanding what services they offer and what they do, but I suggest you start with EC2 and load balancers. This is basically what you need to get a service presentable and running on the internet. You want to run something on the internet, but what are you going to run? So, let's write a simple web application. When I say simple, you can't get simpler than a static HTML page. Upload HTML. You might have to learn that first, or just use an editor like Word that will spew out HTML for you, and you can include some pictures. And then we get back to the question that we started right at the top. Copying that content onto the server. Initially, when you're getting started, it's okay to SFTP or SSH onto the server in order to upload that content. Later on, you'll probably want to expand on your knowledge by maybe uploading it to an S3 bucket. An S3 bucket is a very easy way of Amazon providing you with a web server. You can copy your files up to the interface through the S3 console and then turn it into a web server by clicking the "This is a web server" button and ensuring your files are public. For static sites, this is great. My blog is set up the same way. It has a CloudFront on the front that then points to an S3 bucket, which is hosting a static website. Okay, it's a little bit more complicated than that because I use a Ruby in order to generate the site and automatically upload to that. The Ruby code gets generated, it uploads to the S3 bucket, and then publishes it. And this is all done using AWS Cloud Pipeline. but we're getting ahead of ourselves. If you want to go to a more advanced setup, like a 3-tier application, I often mention these in my videos, you'll have a web front end running something dynamic, like Python or PHP. Then you'll have a second tier, possibly a back-end database where you might do some processing. This can be excluded for a simple application if you've just got a web front end and a database. For the database, AWS provide RDS. So you can use MySQL or Oracle. I think MySQL is included in the RDS free tier. So to go over that again, either have static content on your S3 bucket. When you're running dynamic stuff, like PHP or Python, this runs on an EC2 instance that then connects to a database running in RDS. You can also have CloudFront sitting on the front of this in order to provide some caching. The next stage in this development is to be able to scale it up. So this time you want 2 EC2 instances running the web application. In order to have 2 EC2 instances, we'll then need to introduce an elastic load balancer. The elastic load balancer ensures that the traffic only goes to the instance that's working and that it can split it evenly among the 2, 3, 4, 10 instances that we have. In the 3-tier application, we have the web front end, and then we have a processing server in the middle, as well as a database on the back end. In order to start doing some of the offline processing, maybe your app sends emails. That's a very simple thing to do, but we don't want the web server to wait whilst the email's being sent, so we can set that up using Amazon SQS, a queuing service, that then our middle tier picks up a queue, goes, you want to send an email? Okay, I'll do that for you. Amazon also offer an email service, SES. Stepping somewhat sideways from that, perhaps you don't want that middle server at all, and it's all being handled by Lambda functions. Lambda functions are where you can store small snippets of code that get run on an event-driven basis. Our example above, when you want to send an email, your application can then say, hey, I want to send an email, put it in the SQS queue. That SQS queue can then trigger a Lambda that then talks to a simple email service in order to send the email. This saves us the hassle of having a server to look after in the middle, and is sometimes called serverless. Finally, on the back end, you'll be wanting to see what's going on. When your web servers are just on their own, just one web server, then having the text log file on that server might be sufficient. But where we're scaling it up to 2, 3 or 10 servers, we want those logs stored in a central place. Amazon offer CloudWatch. The CloudWatch service enables you to store metrics, how busy your servers are, CPU, memory usage, same for RDS, as well as being able to store logs. So if you've got access logs or error logs on your servers, you can then aggregate these within CloudWatch. There's lots of other services that you could utilize when you're ready to do so. Route 53 for custom domains and DNS routing. Other database options like DynamoDB if you want a NoSQL database. I hope this has been a good overview of what you can get started, get that free tier, learn those basic commands, and then understand how those services put together. I could recommend my video, which AWS service for my startup, in order to see how these all fit together. Let me know how you get on in the comments below. Till next time.